Hello and welcome to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to take you through one of the most important documents called project charter. So you could be wondering as to what is this project charter. So in a nutshell, project charter is just a document that authorizes the start of a project. So it's also a document that is used to commit resources into the project. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Oscar Mbira. I'm a certified program and project manager. In this video, I'm going to take you through the understanding, the reasons and the validity of a document called project charter. So in a project environment, during initiation, there is a document called project charter. And this document is quite important for every project. Why is it important? It's because it is the document that authorizes the start of the project. It is the document that shows commitment from the business or from the organization to start a project. So it is one of the documents that you have to create during initiation. It has to be signed off by the sponsor. In most cases, you find, especially for small projects, it's actually created by the sponsor. But in some big projects, you'll find that the sponsor might actually work with the project manager or even the PMO, which is Project Management Office, to complete this document. And then it is approved by the organization or by senior management. This document normally contains high level details, which can also be expanded later into or during project planning. So let us look at what we are going to cover in this video. We are going to cover the understanding of what is a project charter. We are also going to cover the contents of the project charter. We are also going to cover what are the informational inputs into the project charter. We are also going to cover what are the informational outputs of the project charter. So let's move on. So let us start by understanding what is a project charter. So a project charter is a document that is created during initiation stage of a project, and it's used mainly for three main purposes. So the first one is the document that is used to authorize the project. So let me expand a bit on this. So you don't just start by running a project in a business environment or in any organization. In most cases, projects, they consume a lot of resources, both human resources and also non-human resources. So committing those resources into a project, it requires some level of approval from the organization or even from the business or even from the government. So assuming an organization has decided to embark on a certain project, say for example, to create a product or even to improve some service and or even during research. So when the organization or business decided to do that, they must formally approve that. They must formally authorize the start or the initiation of that project. So how do they do that? They do it through the project charter. At that point, you might realize that the project charter might not have so much in terms of detail. It's normally high-level details that you find in a project charter at that particular point. Say, for example, if you look at what are the deliverables. Deliverables, in most cases, they are very clear. Not detailed, but they are very clear. I can give you a good example. Say, for example, the bank is a banking project, and they want to change their core banking system. So the main deliverable is a working core banking system that is also integrated with other channels like internet banking, like ATMs, and so on and so forth. Then you also have sections like time frame. At this point, it's not going to be a detailed schedule. Say, for example, the project I was giving as an example on banking, they might say, as an organization, we need this project to run for 2 years, as an example, or even 18 months, as an example. So that is what you normally capture in the project charter. Then, after being authorized, which means the project manager has been appointed, he has been also assigned to the project, and the authority of the project manager has also been defined. So that is the start of commitment, of application, of use of organization or business resources. So a project charter will also help the business to assign a project manager and also to give the authority of a project manager. A project manager might have different authority within the project, depending on the type of project. If it's going to be more on the functional, the project manager might be part-time. But assuming it is a projectized environment, which means the project manager is going to have control and authority over the resources. Then the second purpose also you're going to see is assignment of project manager as well as the project sponsor. And in some cases, they even create a project board or steering committee. And they also capture the expected participants in the project board or the expected stakeholders in the project board or steering committee. Then the third one that you also see is the definition, okay, or the description at a high level of the project, the benefits of the project, the business case of the project, why the project is being undertaken by the organization or even by the business. So that is also very, very important. So that is the main purpose of why you need a project charter. Project authorization, project initiation, assignment of project manager, assignment of sponsor, definition of actual deliverables, and validation of the business case. So let us go through these items one by one and try to understand the contents also of the project charter. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and the notification button so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. So, in this section of the video, I'm going to cover why you need a project charter. So there are so many reasons why it matters to have a project charter in a project environment. And one of the main reasons is if you don't have a charter, it means you have no formal authorization to start the project. So assuming you're a project manager and you have just been appointed into a project, you have realized that there is no charter. My advice is always try to create this charter and always try to make sure that this charter is also approved by the required senior management. It's a form of their high-level commitment, or not just high-level. It is a form of commitment they're going to give to the project. So if there's no charter, make sure that you create the charter, get it approved or authorized so that you can start the project. And also why it matters is if the project charter is not created, the project manager does not have the authority to commit resources, does not even have the authority to request resources or even to assign resources into a project. So it is quite important that you should always have this charter, and that is why the charter matters to you. Then the other reason why it matters to have a project charter is also the stakeholders should be able to understand, define, and know what is in scope and what is not in scope. Also the goals of the project, what is success of the project, what is failure of the project. All this information must be captured in a project charter. So if that is not available, the project charter, it will be very difficult either to engage or even to manage stakeholders going forward. Then the last one is the risk, also the budget, also they're not baselined. You have no starting point. So in the project charter, this is where you're going to capture information like your schedule period. 2 years. This is where you're going to capture information like your schedule period, 2 years, 1 year, or budget. Is it $1,600,000, and so on and so forth. So it's quite important that you have this project charter when you're initiating the project. Make sure that in terms of scope, everything is clear. In terms of budget, everything is clear. Timelines. Also, you need to capture the constraints, the assumptions. We're going to cover these items as we go through the contents of the project charter. In this part of the video, we are going to cover the contents of a project charter. So there are basically 14 components or elements that you should expect, or sections that you should expect in a project charter. So we are going to go through them one by one to try to understand exactly what are these contents and what do they represent, what are you supposed to capture, and what is required. So the first part that we are going to cover is the purpose of the project, or project purpose. I can tell you from my experience, once you don't understand the purpose of the project, once there is no clarity in terms of what exactly do you want to achieve when executing that project, then the definition of success or failure of the project becomes very, very difficult. So it is advisable that you should always capture the purpose of the project, and you should state it clearly. Why are you embarking on this project? In terms of business case, how does it link to business case? So it is quite important that you capture the purpose. Then the next part is also to capture the high-level project description. What do we mean by this? When you're creating your project charter, it is quite important that you describe exactly what the project is trying to achieve clearly. What is it it's going to achieve? Remember from the definition of project, which is a temporal endeavor to produce a unique product or produce a unique service, or even to produce a unique result. So in this section of the project charter, when it comes to project description, you don't need to be very detailed, but you just have to describe exactly what is the purpose of this project. Why are you embarking on this project? What are the benefits of this project? That has to be clearly stated in the project charter. When you are creating project charter, one of the most important sections to consider is the boundaries, which means in terms of scope. What is in scope? What is out of scope? This is a very, very important section for project charter, because it's going to feed more into planning stage. When you go into planning phase or planning stage of a project, you should be able to know and to pick what is in scope and what is out of scope. How do you pick that? You start from the project charter. Project charter is going to clearly say this particular, say for example, you are implementing a software project or software system. The project charter is going to be clearly stating what is in scope in terms of modules, what is not in scope. For example, it might say in terms of application security, you might find it in scope. But when it comes to maybe sending of email to external stakeholders, it's out of scope. So this section is very, very important. And you should always revisit this section, because it defines exactly what is going to be done in the project, what is not going to be part of the project. And that is very, very important to consider. Then the other section, which is very, very important, is key deliverables of the project. You need to capture in the project charter what are the key deliverables that you should expect to see or to have either during the project or even after the project. So that is very, very important to consider. So when you're creating a project charter, you should always have some high-level requirements. And in small projects, you find the sponsor will provide the high-level requirements. And then in some big projects, the sponsor might work with a group of people, including even project manager, to make sure that they are captured properly, or senior users who are going to provide the requirements. So the high-level requirements must exist in the project charter. So you could be asking, why are we capturing requirements at a project charter level? Remember, project charter is actually created during initiation stage. So if it is created during initiation stage, people have to understand in terms of requirements what exactly is going to be expected of the project in terms of result, in terms of product, or even in terms of service. So this high-level requirement should always be there and should be validated by the project sponsor. The other section that you should always make sure is captured in a project charter is the high-level risks. I can tell you there are so many high-level risks that you can pick before you even start the project, and they can come from different sources. And one of them, it could be from lessons learned. Okay, so you can learn lessons, or you can capture lessons based on the projects that were executed in the project in the organization, and also you can also learn lessons from projects that were executed from the industry type that you might be running. It could be financial industry, it could be manufacturing, research, and so on and so forth. So these lessons already can help you to pick some of these high-level risks. You can also pick the high-level risks from expert judgment, where you have some experts who are quick to let you know that, say for example, when it comes to vendor management, they will tell you that it's most likely that the contracts might take 3, 4, 6 months to be signed during the procurement process. So you already put that. You can already put that as a high risk item in the project charter. You might also pick it from what are called organizational process assets. So organizational process assets, these are like, for example, templates that you might pick, policies also from the organization. You can have even procedures that you can have from the organization, or even processes. So this can also help you to pick some of these high-level risks during the creation of a project charter. So like any endeavor, there is no way you can try to run a project without appreciating, without documenting the objectives and also the success criteria. So when you are completing your project charter, you have to make sure that you have captured the objectives of the project. And these objectives, they must be SMART, which means it must be very clear in terms of are they achievable? Do they have a time limit? Are they also measurable? So it must be SMART. So when you say SMART project or objectives, they must be like that in a project environment. Then also when it comes to criteria for success, you should agree upfront. When you say the project was successful, what does it mean? I've seen so many project managers making a mistake, thinking that delivering a project within scope, within time, and then within budget is success. I can tell you the group of people or group of stakeholders who can confirm success or failure of a project, they are the users. By users, what do I mean? Those who are going to use the final product, those who are going to be affected by the final product. So those are the ones who are supposed to define whether it's success or fail. And that has to be captured in the project charter. It must be captured. How are we going to define done? How are we going to define success? How are we going to define failure? In some cases, you'll find that success can partly be achieved during the project and can also be even achieved well after the project. So that is also very important to define. The other section that you have to make sure it's well captured in a project charter is the milestones. So what is a milestone? A milestone is high, or even it's an achievement or completion of a very important task in a project environment. So you could be asking, for example, what do you mean by milestone? Say, for example, even the signing or the closure of project charter is considered a very important milestone. You can also have, if it's software development, you can have design completion is a milestone. If it's construction, you might even have the foundation completion, or even the brick structure or the concrete structure completed as a milestone. So milestones should be well defined in the project charter, including even the dates they are expected to be completed. So that is very important to capture in a project charter. People should know what are the milestones that we are going to have, and from these milestones, when are we expecting them to be delivered and to be concluded. This is also going to help as an input when you are creating what is called a milestone list of a project. So you cannot run a project without resources. So definitely you have to capture the financial resources in a project charter. What do we mean by this? You see, you want to capture, the first thing is to capture the funding. How are you funding the project? Is it some external funds that you're going to use? Or probably you're going to use some external or some internal funds to fund the project. And after defining and understanding the source of the funding, you also need to capture how much are you putting aside as part of the project. How much is being committed financially to be part of the project. So when it comes to financial resources, you might find three categories of the defined figures or amounts. The first one is the general estimation based on either expert judgment or previous experience or lessons learned, or even some external or independent estimates. Then you also find what is called contingents, reserves, which means from a project management point of view, what is being put aside in case there's something unforeseen events that might come without having to go back to the organization for approval. So this could be even risk budget. You might even fund it for some risk. If something is going to happen, how are you going to fund that? You might also find under the contingent reserves, you might also have quality. Quality, it has got cost of either cost of preventing it, cost of correcting it, So you also have, so those are some of the reserves. There are quite a number of them. I'm not going to cover them in this video. I'm going to create a different video on that. So in this particular section, you cover the funding. You also cover the amount. Then the last one we have is management reserves. Management can say, according to the current estimates, you want $1 million. Then for their only, can I say, reservations, they might say, we are giving 200,000 aside just in case, but you will not be spending this amount. You only spend it when it's necessary and approved by management. So you end up with 1.2. So capturing financial resources in a project charter is also very, very important. Make sure that your project charter, you have you also have the financial resources captured properly. So during initiation stage, there is one process that is very, very important called stakeholder identification. So when you are creating your charter, you want to make sure that you have captured the stakeholders. At that particular moment, you might not have all the stakeholders. Actually, stakeholder management, it's a process that is done before the project, during the project, and even towards closure of the project. If you want to understand more about stakeholder management, I've created a video on stakeholder management. You can also check it on my channel. I'm also going to leave a link in the description. So you need to create a stakeholder list on the project charter to clearly state which stakeholders do you have in the project, what do you expect them to, or what is the expectation in the project, how are they affected by the project. Remember, a stakeholder is anyone who is affected negatively or positively, or anyone who is going to affect the project, or anyone who is perceived to be affected by the project. So you need to capture those stakeholders at the beginning and also during the creation of the project charter. So you also need to capture project approval requirements. How are you going to approve requirements in the project? How are you going to make some decisions in a project? How are you going to make sure that some deliverables are actually delivered in a project? So that has to be captured in a project charter. It's quite important that you include that section also. So during creation of project charter, you want to understand exit criteria. When you say you want to exit the project, you want to exit a phase, what has to be done first? So the exit criteria must be defined, well defined, and this must come from the users or the end beneficiaries of the system, or if it's not the system, it will be a result, a product, or even the project. So the beneficiary of the project should be the ones defining the criteria, exit criteria. Don't make a mistake I've seen in my experience where either the vendor is trying to define the exit criteria, or it could be even the project manager trying to do that. We as project manager, we don't define exit criteria. It is the users and the beneficiaries of the project who are supposed to define the exit criteria. So the exit criteria should be well defined in the project charter. So a project charter must always define the PM. And in most cases, you'll find you even put names of the PMs where it's applicable. And it can also define the authority. This is very, very important. The authority of a PM is very important, especially if you're a PM. You need to know to what extent do you influence the project? To what extent do you spend without asking for approval? To what extent do you manage resources without being affected by either functional departments or anybody else in the organization? So the authority and assignment of project manager should be well defined in the project charter. Remember, the project charter is going to be like it's going to be a blueprint of the project. It's going to give you the approval. It's going to give you the authority as a project manager, for example. So the authority must be well defined in the project charter. Also, the same applies to project sponsor. The project sponsor must be also be part of the project charter, although this can change when people move or change from one place to the other. So that is why some people, they try to avoid putting names, but in most cases, putting names is also very important because it gives more for accountability. And also the authority of the project or sponsor should be well defined in the project charter. For example, how much can be approved by the project sponsor without going to the project board or steering committee or even senior management of the organization. And also in terms of resources, non-human or human resources, to what extent can the sponsor be accountable, or to what extent can the sponsor commit those resources. So it's also quite important that you capture this in the project charter. If you want to dive deeper into understanding what is a project management, or you want to appreciate project management in totality, I've also created for you a comprehensive ebook, which you can also access using the link in the description below. So in this section of the video, we are going to cover what are the informational inputs into the project charter. So what do we mean by this? We are looking at what feeds into this creation of a project charter. Assuming you've been requested to assist or to advise or even to create a project charter, you need to understand exactly what information feeds into the project charter. We call them inputs into the project charter. So there are basically 4 inputs that you normally find in a project charter. The first one is agreements. In most cases, it might not be a contract as such, especially if it is an internal project. But if it is something that is going to involve external vendors, as an example, you will find that you have agreements or even contracts before you even create the charter. So when the organization or the company, they've gone through their procurement, they've also selected their vendor, they are going to sign agreements with the vendor with so many clauses within the agreement or the contract. If you want to understand more about project contract types, I've created a video on project contract types. You can also check it on my channel. I'll also leave a link in the description below. So agreements or contracts, they are going to feed into the project charter. There are certain information that you need from the agreements. Say, for example, you have agreed on the length or period of the project, which we're talking about milestones. So you can pick that information also. You are also able to pick stakeholders when you're creating stakeholder lists. You can also pick them from agreements and also from contracts to feed into your project charter. You can even capture some of the boundaries we're talking about, that is constraints. How are you limiting the project, and so on and so forth. Then you can also even capture some of the financial resources. A vendor is someone who's going to be paid outside the organization. They request a certain amount, a certain fee. You might also want to capture that. So in terms of inputs, agreements or contracts, they are also used as inputs into the project charter. Then there are 2 documents also which are very important as inputs into a project charter. These are called business documents. There are 2 business documents that we're going to cover. So the first one is the business case. So a business case is a document that is created to validate the need or the reasons why you should embark on that specific project. For example, the business case might define that maybe you want to increase customer satisfaction. That is the business case that you have. It can also be because of regulatory requirements. You know, there are certain reasons why projects are initiated, and one of them is regulatory requirements. The other one, it could be even a social requirement that we have. In some cases, it could be even technology. Okay, so the business case must define exactly why you are embarking on that particular project. Why are you doing that project? What is expected of that project? How is the business going to see that there's benefit from that project? So you also need to use the business case, which is normally done way before the project is executed or before the project is actually approved or initiated. So you need to take that document as an input as you're creating your project charter. And then the next one is the business benefits plan. So in most cases, projects are used to create change, and change comes with certain benefits. So most organizations, they want to understand and appreciate, how are we going to benefit from this project, and after how long? Do we have certain dates, and so on and so forth? So that is why it's called a plan or even strategy. So in most projects, especially predictive projects, you'll find the benefits are normally realized towards the end. But in an agile project, the benefits might even be realized during the project, when you're creating what are called minimum viable products. So the benefit realization plan should always be an input into your project charter. You want to make sure that a certain benefit, when is it going to be realized? In some cases, you'll find some of these benefits, they are actually realized way after the project. So that is why it is an organizational document that must remain. It's not like a project management document that should be initiated and closed during the project. It might be realized later. Okay. So those are the two documents, business documents that you should use as inputs into the project charter. Then the other document you should expect is what is called a statement of work. Statement of work, in most cases, it works very well if you are working with the external vendors, because they are defining exactly what is going to be covered in the project, how is it going to be executed, what is required to execute. Say, for example, like I was giving you a banking project example which I was involved in. The statement of work might define the modules that are also involved, and probably the integrations into external systems from the banking system that are also involved. So statement of work also works as an input into the project charter. However, in some cases you might not have statement of work, and therefore you might not push yourself to try to look for that. So in summary, there are four expected inputs into the project charter. The first one, which is the agreements or the contracts that were agreed before you start the project, for you to identify stakeholders. And then also you have the business case, which means the reason why you are undertaking the project, the benefits of that project is defined there. And also the benefits realization plan. How are you going to realize the benefits from that project? In most cases, you don't just do projects. There must be some benefit towards that. Then the last one is statement of work. Statement of work might exist or might not exist, but if it exists, then you can use it also as an input when you're creating the project charter. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and the notification button so that you're the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. So, in this particular video, we're going to cover the 15 documents that you should expect as output, or that you should expect to be used in the project charter during the project. These are quite important. So understanding how to create a project charter, understanding how it's going to feed into other project documents is very important in a project environment. And especially if you're a project member, especially if you're a project sponsor, and especially if you're a project manager. So let us go through them at high level one by one. I'm going to create different videos for these documents, but at high level, I'm going to touch on them. There are 15 of them. So the first one that you are going to see as part of the output is the stakeholder register. So in terms of once the project charter is signed, it will be used to create stakeholder register. Remember, in the project charter, we have a stakeholder list, so you create a register from there. Then also on the requirements plan, you are also going to use the project charter to refine or even create or even enrich the requirements management plan. Remember, the project charter has got a high-level requirements which have been approved, so therefore you now expand it into your requirements plan. Then the scope statement is also going to benefit from the project charter. How is it going to benefit? Remember, project charter is going to capture the boundaries, what is included, what is excluded, what is in scope, what is not in scope. So the scope statement also is going to use the project charter for that particular purpose. Then the quality management plan also is also going to use the project charter as input into its creation. So the project charter defines the deliverables. Deliverables will have specific quality metrics, so it can also push it into there. We have the risk management plan. So the project charter is also going to be used as an input into risk management plan. If you want to understand more about how risk is managed in a project, I've created a video on risk management. You can also watch it on my channel. I'll also leave a link in the description. So the project risk management plan, it uses project charter as an input. Then also you have the project management plan as a whole. You also need to use the project charter for that purpose. In terms of your requirements documentation, also you need the project charter. Schedule management, you also need to use the project charter. Remember, project charter has got milestones with dates. You can also use that to enrich or even to create your schedule management. Then the resource management plan, which is also one of the very important plan in a project environment. You pick the resource, there's a section for financial resources that you're going to be using as an example from the project charter. Then you can use it for resource. Also for procurement, remember, project charter, we also have some deliverables, some resources. There are some resources which might not exist in an organization or in a business. And therefore, you'll be forced to acquire them from external. So procurement also is going to have that. Then the scope management plan, how are you going to manage the scope? You use that. There's something called requirements traceability matrix. You're also going to create it and using the project charter as an input, including also cost management plan. So that is very, very important. Your communication management plan is also going to be very important, also when you're using project charter as an input. And that is very, very important to note, especially when it comes to stakeholder engagement. You have to make sure that you have captured it properly and you use the project charter as an input or as a basis to create that communication management plan. So in this section of the video, we're going to quickly clarify the project charter life cycle. That is from creation all the way up to closure. So the project charter is created during initiation. It is also referenced during planning. And then project charter is also monitored during execution of the project. Project charter is also reviewed during monitoring and control of a project. And then project charter is also going to be archived during the closure of a project. So it is a life cycle from the beginning of the project, during the project, and also towards the end of the project. So it's quite important to understand this life cycle of a project charter. And once it has been signed, it rarely changes, to be honest with you. You don't find project charter changing so frequently like another document. As a project charter change, there are so many scenarios where the project charter can change. And one of the scenarios is where there's a significant change to project environment. Maybe there's organizational change or regulatory shifts, or maybe when there's a major scope change that exceeds original project boundaries. And then if there's a schedule change that moves key milestones behind, that will trigger the change of a project charter. Then also resource changes. There might be loss of key personnel or significant resources, a reduction that can cause the project charter to be revisited. Also budget changes that can exceed pre-approved financial thresholds again. Then stakeholder changes. Also sponsor might change, major client change, or even a vendor, they can also change. So once the charter is developed, it rarely changes, okay? And the charter is not the project management plan. Without charter, there is no PM authority, and the sponsor issues the charter. The PM typically helps to write it. If you want me to create additional videos based on what we have covered in this video, or there's a concept or there's an idea which you think you need additional videos on that, you can reach out to me, or you can let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.